Hey everyone, welcome to the Self-Awareness Journey podcast. I'm Melissa Albers.
And I'm JJ Parker. This podcast is for seekers of happiness and joy, seekers of a centered approach to success in life, seekers of their true, authentic selves.
Get ready for some real talk on everything from anxiety, emotions, and habits to love, compassion, and forgiveness. We know you'll be challenged and enlightened by this conversation. We're so glad you're here. Let's dive in.
So my brother texted me a couple days ago, and him and his wife recently sold their house, and they're moving into a new house.
Okay, yeah.
And the house that they sold was our family's childhood home.
Oh.
Right? So he ended up.
I actually never knew that.
Yeah, like after college, I think he moved out, and then he bought a house, but like kind of a little far away, and then he needed to move back to the cities. And then at that same time, my parents were, basically moving up to the cabin because they had retired and they were just kind of looking to move on. And it just so happened to work out that that him and his wife bought, like my parents' house or our childhood home.
Wow.
And he did an amazing job, like fixing this thing up. This was like a 1940s Rambler that my parents bought in, like 1975.
Yeah.
So yeah, he did a really amazing job. But he reached out and said, "Hey, we are closing on the house next week. Do you want to come see it one last time?"
Huh.
And
Wow. That was thoughtful of him.
That was very thoughtful. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I really had to think about that for a minute because like I hadn't been there in a really long time, and he'd done a really good job renovating it. Like it's probably unrecognizable to my, like whatever 1986 memory of it when I was like a kid.
Punk, you're such a punk.
And
yeah.
So I was like, do I want to see it, or do I just want to remember that house the way it was when I was a kid?
Yeah. What did you decide?
I actually decided to not go see it, to just leave my memory alone. Yep.
Oh.
And one of the reasons that I actually made that choice was from a different experience where I just remember very distinctly when I was like maybe in my 20s, my grandpa, I saw my grandpa right before he passed away in the hospital. And I just remember thinking, like, I kind of wish that I hadn't seen him in this like this kind of feeble, weak state, because my memory of my grandpa was a, like strong, abled, he was a farm guy and a construction guy, and and it just kind of like at that last moment shifted my permanent memory of him.
How old were you at the time?
I think I was probably in my mid-20s.
Oh, okay.
So I just thought, do I want to change this memory that I have about my childhood home or not? And I decided I didn't want to. Yeah. So I politely declined.
Well, I think this idea of how we remember things is such an interesting one, because I think I actually think a lot of our stability and our future state is based on the past that we have, the memories that we have. And so often the memories are not actually completely accurate either.
Oh, for sure not accurate. Anyone who's listening who is in law enforcement in any way is like, or a lawyer involved in the legal system in any way is probably like, yes, humans' memories are terrible.
I love it. But I do think that's really interesting. And I think, when you talk about memory, what I started to think about when you mentioned that your brother called you and offered that is I started to think, first of all, that was pretty generous of him, thought it was thoughtful. It was very thoughtful for him. And it started to make me wonder, I wonder how he's looking at it.
Well,
you
that's a
know?
great question. Yeah, I wanted to be like I wanted him to, I didn't want to decline and have him think like that I wasn't like proud of the work he had done on that house.
Right,
I wanted
right,
to be
right.
clear, like it was because I wanted to preserve
Yeah.
my memory, my childhood memory of the house.
Mm,
So I hopefully those things didn't get
mm.
crisscrossed.
Yeah.
I'll send him this episode so he's clear that they should what my
They're not.
intention was.
Yeah, your offer has nothing to do with my reaction. That's an interesting one, right? Actually, we should do a
Yeah.
pod called that. Your offer has nothing to do with my reaction.
That's funny.
Yeah. How much of our memories do you think we alter over
Oh,
time to
I was
support?
totally thinking about that,
You
right?
were?
Because yes. Yeah, because I was thinking, like, we've got memories of, like, places
Yep.
and people,
Yep.
like, and events, right?
Mhm.
Um, and, I'm sure, like, our memory of those things changes over time, for
Yeah.
sure.
Mhm.
I mean, how many times, like, do you look back on something that was probably terrible at the time and you're kinda like, "Oh, it wasn't so
Right.
bad."
Yes, totally.
Like, you're just
Yes.
you're selecting
Mhm.
the certain things to remember.
Yeah, or the
Um
reverse of that, if you are a true
mm,
survivor and you've had a lot of upheaval to say, "Yeah, that I remember that as being not too bad," when in reality it was terrible.
yeah,
The other way around too. I
yeah.
think it is very I almost wanna say self-serving, even though that sounds a bit selfish. I don't mean it to
I
sound like
think
that. I think there
it
is some
is. Self-serving, self-protecting. It's
yeah,
like if you're gonna
preserving.
yeah, if you're gonna you don't we generally don't want to rehash bad things that happen to us. So I think
Right.
part of maybe our natural wiring is to forget about some of the bad things and just maybe keep the good things. Maybe that's not like everybody's experience, but
No, I
in
think a lot of
my
people feel that
observation,
way.
it's probably the majority.
I've noticed too in coaching a lot of times people will also create future state based on a memory of
Mm,
something that happened to them and then actually creating some really strong boundaries or fences about what they won't be or won't do or
mm,
won't think or will
yeah,
because of this memory that they have of an event
yeah,
or a timeline, like a
mhm.
certain period of their lives.
Yeah, that's us get like we're so bad at accurately remembering a timeline of events.
Hmm.
Like it's as we get farther away from those, it
Yeah.
the details start to fade or like get out of order. What I was really wondering about, specifically around like, does your memory change over time?
Hmm. Hmm.
To me, a lot of my memory, or the way I remember things, is like the story around that event or around that person. And I think I will change the story over time.
Hmm. I
Meaning
totally agree with
that,
you. I was just
like,
reflecting on my own.
maybe maybe I thought something was, uh, I was dealt in, unfair,
Hmm.
I was in an unfair situation.
Yeah.
But then maybe the farther I get away from that,
Yeah.
maybe I get some different perspective and say, well, actually, it wasn't that unfair what that person did because they were just acting in a certain way. And as I maybe get more worldview or context or something, um, for myself, I maybe change that past story.
Yeah. I think the reverse is also true. Like I agree. This is such an interesting topic. Like, because there are certain people in my professional past where I would say, I thought they were all that and a bag of chips.
Mm,
No matter what, they were the North Star for life, man. I
hmm
was gonna follow their example. And then as history unfolds and as you live your life and as you have different experiences, and as I have, looking back, realizing, oh, they were really, 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 that was very different than how I
mm,
was telling
hmm
myself. And I think a lot of it has to do with what the story you tell yourself in the moment is very
hmm
much to just keep you on your feet, to keep you feeling like you're moving forward
yeah,
and like you're smart and you can take care of yourself. And I don't think it matters how old we get. I think
hmm
that is a natural state for us to try to create a homeostasis of how we experience things and what we remember.
yeah. And I think, I mean, our experiences and the way we remember things is through our interpretation. of the things at that time.
And our emotional state too.
Mm-hmm.
Very much our
So
emotional state.
it could be that during that time, we're maybe we're interpreting things through a specific lens, and if we get some time separating that event, our lens might have changed.
Yeah. There's been many coaching conversations that I've had where when someone feels ready to look at a memory, that being able to talk through the memory with a good thinking partner.
Yeah. I just think, just flashed in my head, Melissa's coaching sessions are like the pensive in Harry Potter, where he pulls a memory out of his head and puts it in that thing of liquid and they jump into it. If anyone wants that kind of coaching experience, call Melissa. I'm not overselling it, am I?
No. Not even remotely. No, but I think sometimes when people are ready to start talking about the experiences that they have saved in their memory bank, because I think some of them are pretty steeped and we're unwilling to look at them. It's like, nope, keep it in the box. Like, that is the memory. Don't challenge my memory. Don't question that memory, because I've created all sorts of things around that now.
Yeah.
And sometimes.
How many times do you hear people say the phrase, "Oh, the way I remember it is
yeah,
completely loaded"?
Yeah. Exactly. And I was a really in tune 17-year-old.
Totally.
I almost made JJ choke on his. Is that kombucha that you're
Yes, I shouldn't
drinking?
be drinking kombucha while we're having our conversation, but I'm going to anyway.
Oh my gosh. But what I was going to say is sometimes actually reframing the memory is incredibly freeing, because it can help you continue to remember the good parts of it that you don't want to forget.
Yeah.
And then also frame it in a little more mature thought, a little more objective piece that you didn't have before.
Yeah. I think that's actually a really good exercise, is to go think about some impactful memories, some events or some people.
Yeah.
And rethink about what that story is that you're telling yourself about that event.
Yeah.
And like you said, maybe reframe it with your current context.
Yeah.
With your current experience.
I think that's hard. I think that's a really hard thing to do. But how many of your adult behaviors and decisions, like now, for example, as a parent, are based on memories that you had as a child?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, for example, my mom could whistle so loud you could hear it 3 blocks away. She had one of those, she'd put 2 fingers in her mouth, and that was that. Everyone in the neighborhood knew when they heard that whistle, oh, Missy, you got to go home. Okay? Now, as I frame that memory and I think about that memory, it conjures up many things. It conjures up fear, like, I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yep.
It conjures up, it's time to come in and do the thing I don't really want to do. Homework, whatever, clean my room. I can't play outside anymore. Like that kind of thing. And when I frame this memory, I honestly feel like she did it every damn day. The truth is, it probably was just a couple of times.
Yeah.
It's probably a couple of times that she did that. But in my mind, and especially as I've told the story and recounted that memory, I've further steeped it into the file cabinet that is non-negotiables. Like, no, this did happen.
It's like folklore. It's
yes. Oh my gosh. You want to hear another funny one?
Yeah.
Another thing that I did is I still am a huge agate collector. I love agates. I have piles of agates. I love agates, right? The rock, I'm absolutely in love with agates. When I was young, I mean like 5 and 6. And I know I was 5 or 6 because we only lived in this house when I was 5 and 6 years old. So I was that little. I had the entire neighborhood doing what I wanted them to do. So I had an ice cream bucket that I tied a big rope around, and I climbed this tree. And I would sit up in this tree. I mean, if this is not embarrassing and prophetic and hilarious all at the same time, I would put that bucket down on the ground, and I'd have all of my air quotes minions go and get rocks that they thought were agates and put them in the bucket. And then I would pull the bucket up, right? I would pull the bucket up and I'd look in there and I'd be like, nope, not an agate. And I'd throw them, right?
What?
Or
How, how did you wield this
I
much
don't know.
power as a
I don't
kid?
know. I don't know. But now, okay. So now in my advanced years,
Uh-huh.
I'm so embarrassed by that. I'm like, oh my gosh, who did I think I was? So I've always caught myself. It's like,
So
don't be
bossy.
so bossy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, oh, and by the way, my kindergarten report card said, Missy needs to not be so bossy again. Again. It said again. Right? So what's the story I'm telling myself from that memory? Oh, I must have been a real little,
A little brat.
awful.
Yeah.
So now, as an adult, I think to myself, oh, I better keep that in check because my memory is that I've always been like that in such an expanded way, which I know, yes, maybe in certain parts, but no, not in all parts. But that's what my memory tells me.
I don't find you overly bossy.
Sometimes. But isn't that funny? Like that's something simple, but look at that little simple memory.
Yeah.
And how much impact it has today.
Yeah, it's really
Because it's
interesting.
still very present for me.
Yeah. Yep.
I think too, when you talk about memories of people, that's really interesting to me. Like you had a vision of your grandfather, and Mitch talks about the same thing. He had a grandfather that was a farmer also. And he remembers going and seeing his grandfather in the hospital right before he passed away. His grandpa was like over 6 feet tall. He was this great big strapping man, and he was just next to nothing in this bed.
Yeah.
And Mitch is so hurt by the fact that he has that image in his head.
Oh, that's funny that he's got the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what are Mitch and I advocating for here? If your loved one's dying, don't go see them.
Oh
No,
my gosh.
I'm serious.
Oh
That is
my
not a
God.
good thing to say, but it's kind of what I'm reacting to, isn't
Well,
it?
it's fear, isn't it? It's fear of being hurt. It's fear of upsetting the apple cart to how you see someone and having their image change for you in an irrevocable way.
Yeah.
And as you get older, you can see a little more how you might think that way. Like your objectivity is greater probably in this scenario.
Probably as an adult or an older adult than I was, I could probably handle that situation better. But in my 20s, it was like really impactful.
It's very traumatic.
So
Yeah, I think it is very traumatic. And I think when we do have memories of people that are meaningful to us, those are our anchors. Those are the people that I remember when my grandmother passed away. I remember thinking to myself, the world is over the way it's always been. I always had someone that no matter what, she would be there for me. And I would have that safety and support even when she was physically becoming feeble. Her mind was so sharp. And I always felt that way. And I just remember thinking that, like all of these memories, what happens now? Like the way I knew things isn't the same. Now, that's grief and that's sad and all of those things. Yet, as I've matured and gotten older, and now it's been several years since that happened, I recognize, oh no, there's so many things that are still here. So I can take that memory and that was a very big decision that I was making in my mind to hold that, like that's my idea I'm gonna go with. But it isn't really true.
Yeah, and what you're talking about and what we've been talking about is like choosing which memories you're going to really hold on to and maybe which ones like you should maybe let go of a little bit.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Which is an interesting thought exercise. I mean, we talk about letting things go. Usually those things are like repetitive thoughts or shame spirals or other
Stop
things we're
eating an
doing to
entire bag
ourselves.
of chocolate at once. You can just eat one.
But letting go of some certain memories might be really helpful.
I'm just brought to, because I got this visual the second time now since we've been talking. You and I have always talked about drawing out a timeline. You remember? Not always, but there's been a couple of key times in our work life where we've been asked to create a timeline of our lives.
Oh, so, yeah, like a life timeline.
Yeah,
like I was born on this day and then all these things happened. Yeah.
Yeah. And then like break it down into decades. So you have your life now. And then if you want, you can put it out to however old you think you're going to be.
Yep.
AKA the Social Security website will give you these questions and tell you about when you're going to CAC.
Right.
Okay. So you could make the timeline 0 to, 91, which is what mine said. Or You can just do whatever age you are. Break it down into decades.
Yep.
I'm encouraging our listeners to do this because it's a really cool exercise, I think.
A funny thing we did when we did this with my group, we have a
Yeah.
mortician in my group.
That's
And
right.
everyone's like writing down like, I'm going to live to 103 and 92 and blah, blah. And she just looks at everybody and she goes, no, you guys are all wrong. It's 72.
Oh my gosh.
It's like, that's
So
the average age.
upbeat.
We're like,
I feel like
"Thanks."
everyone should have a mortician in their life. And not right at the end,
No.
which is when we all have morticians.
Also, she's like the funniest person I know. So
She'd have to be. She would have to be on that job. Okay, let me just
back to the
finish the
timeline.
instruction.
Yep.
Yeah. So you put this timeline down and you break it down into decades or whatever,
Mhm.
or even 5 years if you can. But like what happened in your life between the ages of 0 and 5? If it was a good memory or a good experience, you put it above the line.
Mm.
If it's something that was a negative thing for you or that you don't feel good about, you put it on the bottom of the line.
Yep.
And you can completely do your whole timeline and keep adding to it. Like for me, I was able to very quickly like remember certain key times. Like, I don't know, between 25 and 30, I had a bunch of memory. But then there were gaps, where I couldn't remember exactly. Like, what did I do between 30 and 35? I don't really remember. I was a parent. I
Working.
don't think I slept.
Children.
Yeah, little kids, right? Sucking us dry with every single thing we had. But I think that that's a really useful exercise because go in, fill in the stuff, sleep on it, come back and fill in stuff more, and look at the memories that you have. It would be interesting even to visualize how many of the memories that you have are top of the line and how many memories are at the bottom. And are they equal? Are they unequal? Because I think that kind of gives you your framework of how you think about your past.
Yeah, and it's a great, I've done that exercise. It's a really helpful exercise in a couple of ways. In one way, it's, for me, it made me kind of remember all of the things that I actually did do that for some reason I forget. There's like huge chunks of things that I did, and then I just kind of forgot about them. So it kind of made me proud. Like, oh, wow, I really did accomplish a lot so far.
Yeah.
And then there were some things that were kind of like you said, below the line that were like negative. And it made me think like, why am I still holding on to that? Like, does that thing that happened to me in 8th grade that shapes my story actually even useful? It's not useful. I need to just like get rid of that story.
Yeah.
So like
that's
for me,
interesting.
Like,
that's a really interesting thing to think.
Like a good example of that is like, I was a really, really quiet kid when in elementary school and actually in all of school.
Yeah. And still, yes.
So much so that like in 4th grade, my teacher reached out to my parents and like wanted them to get involved with like, hey, I think he maybe has got like a speech problem. Like he doesn't talk.
Oh, wow.
But my parents like, it's not really true. He talks a lot at home. And then even fast forward to being in high school, I was out with my friends at a concert, and one of my friends invited his like girlfriend at the time, and she and I had been in class for the previous 12 years, like our entire childhood. And she looks over at me as I'm like singing to "They Might Be Giants" as a "They Might Be Giants" concert, super nerdy. She goes, "JJ, I've never heard you talk." And I'm like, "Oh, Lindsay, we've been going to school for like the past, 10, 12 years." She's like, "Yeah, but you never say anything."
Wow.
So, but anyway, that story came out when I did that timeline exercise. I'm like, wait a second, I need to stop telling myself that I'm like that super shy kid.
That's who you are still.
I'm not that. I'm not that. Yes, I do like some alone time, but like,
but you don't have to tell yourself that story that you are that person anymore.
And that was really impactful as soon as I decided that yes, that is a way I behaved, but it wasn't all the time.
Yeah.
And
do you know what else? I was also thinking as you were talking, because I think that some people would like to look at all the things below the line and erase them because they were painful. You feel judgy. You judge yourself about it. You think you're wrong for it. Not always, but if that's true, that those are your immediate reactions, it would be natural for you to want to erase the stuff on the bottom of the line. And I actually think sometimes that pain is your greatest growth?
Uh, yeah. You know what that whole experience for me caused me to be?
Hmm.
Extremely observant.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I bet. I bet you didn't miss anything. You
I
still
mean, I
don't. You're
just
still
can
really good with
observe.
stuff.
Like, I just see a lot, and I don't
Hmm.
need to talk about it.
Yeah. So some of our greatest growth moments are born of some of our greatest pain. And
Mhm.
I think, we've heard people talk like this before, but I think specifically as we're talking about memory in our own timelines, I think this is where you would feel that,
Yeah.
where it's like, wow, this is like, I mean, for example, my mom was married and divorced 4
Mm.
times. So I had lots of different stand-ins,
Mhm.
and a couple of them weren't great and a couple of them were amazing, right? So if I just looked at the whole thing as this is a childhood I had, um, it would be easy to say, oh, how painful. I'm going to erase a lot of
Mhm.
this from my memory because I want to be like everybody else. I don't want to have a past like that. But now, honestly, I'm so incredibly
Mm.
grateful that I had the experiences that I did because they've made me who I am.
Yeah, I mean, that's, again, a great example of just choosing how you're going to remember things. Not
Yeah,
like if you're gonna
exactly.
remember them or not. We're not trying to, like,
Yeah, but
numb everyone out or erase their
right.
memories, but, like, you're recontextualizing or reframing
Yep.
your
Yep.
memories. And I think
Yeah,
that's
that's
totally fine. It's a
yeah.
really healthy thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I do too. Such a good topic, JJ. Well done.
Thanks. I'm gonna
Yeah.
remember this podcast just as it
Un-
was forever.
until until we hang up and leave the studio.
Did you enjoy this episode? Please go to your favorite podcast platform to subscribe, rate, and leave a review so others can discover it as well.
Growing self-awareness is a lifelong journey, and there's always further to go. And it's better when we're all in it together. Please think of someone you know who could benefit from hearing today's conversation and share this episode with them. We can't thank you enough for listening. Until next time, happy exploring, seekers.